Hello, everybody, and it's match day once again as the Rams go down the A50 to take on the Gary Rowett Derby, as we like to call it here on the podcast, against our, I guess, kind of nearly neighbors, but not kind of nearly neighbors. We crossed over to Staffordshire to play Stoke City. So to talk all things Stoke City, is podcaster and friend of the podcast, Ben Rowley. Bren, it's been a couple of years since you've been on. How the heck are you?
I am okay. Life is completely different. Was the last time that you were in the championship, was there still COVID going around? I think.
I think people were back in stands.
Oh, were they just
Yeah, I
about?
think so. I
Okay.
think it was 2022, 2023,
Oh,
something like that.
okay.
I don't know. The
See
last
the
couple of years all just kind of merged into one, mate, to be honest with you. Like,
well,
I'm sitting
yeah,
here thinking like the pandemic's been over, and I'm like, still, what do you mean it's 2024? It's still close to 2020. Like, I've got no concept of time.
yeah. I mean, the last time I remember us playing Derby, I'm sure we played us since, but the last time I remember, I think Rooney scored in a 5-0 win for you guys at your place. Yeah, not happy about that still, but here we are.
Wayne Rooney went off to go be Derby manager, had that great ill-fated spell at Birmingham, which was just hilarious to watch. And now he's at Plymouth. So, and he's obviously doing well for himself because he's 21st in the league. So well done, Wazza. There, he'll rock up to Pride Park in a couple of weeks. But help, I'm a celebrity, get me out of here. Starring Colleen Rooney. Hey, I don't make it up. I just report. They just have me report the preview shows. Ben, talk to me about Stoke. I'm not going to go over the last couple of years because we're both struggling with dates, and I'm sure that Stokes had 3 or 4 different men in charge. I know Nathan Jones was there for a period of time, and then Stoke went and got Schumacher from Plymouth. That didn't really work out for anybody. I think it's safe to say that was a spectacular failure for everybody. Um, Stoke is sitting in 19th in the league, Ben. My question is why? Because normally Stoke is, a mid-table, upper mid-table kind of team, kind of challenging, kind of always there. Is it bad luck? Is it the fact that the coaching's poor? Is it poor playing staff? Is it a mixture of all three? Talk to me about your start of the season, 12 games in.
Oh, blimey. Okay, so we have been crap for a number of years now, as you probably know. Managed to not get relegated in that time, fair enough. But pretty much close every single season. Um, and we just keep shooting ourselves in the foot. When we get something going, when something starts happening, we decide it's not good enough anymore. Um, Admittedly, well, you reel off a load of names there. So Nathan Jones clearly was a disaster. Michael O'Neill finally came out of a very financially restrictive period with Stoke, and we thought, okay, he's going to be able to spend some money now, and we sacked him. Alex Neil came in and decided that he was going to save the club and give us a big plan to do so. We cut that short after 10 months. And then Stephen Schumacher, ironically, despite you saying he was terrible, had, I think, our best win percentage in the championship since we've been down here. And even then, we didn't start off the season too badly, beating Coventry on the opening day, going back to as a home park and beating Plymouth as well. And then we lost against Oxford, and we were like, nah, this isn't the one for us. We want this random Catalan fella, who has only ever managed in the Spanish fourth tier. And here we are. This is not me saying that Narcis Pelak is a bad manager. Um, it's just me saying that we have taken a rather unnecessary risk, particularly when we don't look great and haven't done for a long time. And there's no proof that this risk was ever going to pay off. It may well do come the end of the season. It may well do in 5 seasons' time. But right now, there's such a shift in styles of play from Schumacher wanting the ball quickly up the pitch, however necessary. Sometimes it was long balls, sometimes it was passing their way through. But it was getting the ball up quickly and hurting teams that way. Palak now is trying a much more possession-based system, wants the ball on the floor, although we seem to be kicking it long more than ever. Um, I, 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 I don't really know why we've done this, and it's that rinse and repeat. It's like when you're trying to cook some rice and you think you're not it's not quite there yet. Oh, I'll start again. And you're like, no, 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 no. The first lot would have been fine if you just left it for a little bit longer. This is what we keep doing. This is us continually cooking the same thing and then binning it because we don't think it's perfect. And that's our start to the season, I suppose. It's us shooting ourselves in the foot once again.
And that makes it difficult, Ben, because different players play for different managers, they play in different styles, and so you kind of end up with a cosmopolitan squad in a way that play a bunch of different styles but are not very good at one of them. And especially when, somebody tries to shift the tactical focus. Brentford do this very well. They leave a manager, they get a manager who builds on what's already there, and they get someone with a similar profile. They're not just like, let's just rip everything up. And I love your rice analogy. I'm cracking up about that because you see it all the time in football, and you just wonder why. Because I remember when they made the move for Pellets, you were kind of like, who? And okay, cool. They didn't go to like the the out of work manager office, and they're like, hey, you've got a coat on. Do you have a Velcro patch? And we'll just stick a Stoke badge on that, and then you can come rock up on the sideline. They did something different. So we'll see. Have you seen Stoke City's performances since the new managers come in pick up at all, or is it still early stages?
It's still very early stages. He's only been in, I think, 6 weeks now, and of course, he's had two international breaks to deal with, which has been a blessing in some way because no, he had one international break because we decided to sack Schumacher after the first international break. I don't understand.
You got to
Um,
sack him before if you're going to sack him. You don't wait
too
till
right.
after.
But then we won, I suppose, against Plymouth, so it would have looked a bit silly. Either way, right? Um, he's not had very long to make, as I say, such a big transition in this style of play. Um, and you've got to remember that Alex Neil signed about half of these players, Schumacher signed the other half, and Palak has signed none of these players. So none of them uh, organically fit the way he wants to play. He's not identified any player and go, he's perfect for me. He's had to make do with what he has. And that's absolutely fine. But you can see that some players who were doing okay before, uh, Wouter Berger is now struggling. But Beijing Ho has not played well for most of the season, unfortunately. Junior Chamadou, who is a right back for us and was looking very promising at the start of the season, it has been bombed out by Pelak, and we are now playing Ben Wilmot, a centre back at right back primarily. Um, it's just not made for him, this. And you say, have we improved? We, in a few games, I've seen us have more control of a game. Some complaints about Stoke that I've had over the years is that we haven't controlled our home games particularly, and it's one reason why I think our home performances and our home results have been really, really poor since we've come down. Um, we smashed Portsmouth 6-1 the other week. We had a good 1-1 draw against Norwich. And I can say, you know what, I can see what he's trying to do by trying to take a bit more control of a game rather than just letting the opposition have the ball. Um, but then we were dreadful against Sheffield United. We've been pretty much poor, I think, every game away from home that he's played so far. Um, and as you say, we are in a very lowly place on the table. I can't say it's worked thus far. One really good game against Portsmouth. Other than that, he'd have been winless so far. Um, it's just not been good enough. I'm hopeful that it will improve, but this period over November, particularly, we've got some really hard games over Christmas. It's going to be a big acid test, and that starts with Derby.
Is his job going to be under threat, Ben, if he doesn't turn it around? I know it's ridiculous because of whatever, but football teams do crazy things, and he wins 4 games on the trot, they'll put a statue of him outside, but if he loses 4, he'll be on the dole. Um, is his job under threat if he does not get this right, saying that you have a big run of fixtures starting with the weekend through till basically Christmas? Do you see him being around if things don't turn around for the January transfer window, or if Stoker still hovered around that dotted line with the dreaded relegation hanging over the head? Are they going to try to go get someone who's proven and sit there and say, this didn't work, we've just got to stay in the league?
any rational person says no, he's not under threat, right? But football as a whole in the last few years is pretty irrational. You know, things happen for good or for bad. Um, Put it this way, like I said, if we have a bad November and December, I just cannot see us getting very much from December. We've got like Burnley, um, I think we've got Leeds, I think we've got Sunderland. It's going to be a really hard run. Um, if we don't get any points in November, and I really don't think we'll get any in December either, that could stretch to one win in 15, 16. Um, that's not looking good. And you would then perhaps say, well, January transfer window's coming. If you're going to do it, now's your chance before you either stick or twist on you at that point. Um, I don't think, I think realistically, no matter what happens this season, we will win enough games over the season against teams like Coventry or Portsmouth or Plymouth where we stay up. And to that end, I think we have to keep him. I just cannot see us actually going down. But we sacked Schumacher on the basis that, what he was delivering, wasn't good enough. So if Pelak isn't delivering, I don't know what our expectation now is as a club. Is it top half? Is it playoffs? Is it, more attractive football? Is it, I think there was complaints about how long Schumacher was actually in the building for day to day. Is it just the fact that he works a lot harder and gets on with sporting director Jonathan Walters? I don't know. But realistically, I can't see him being sacked. I think it would be stupid. But I think as we were talking about off air, going down would be a disaster.
Fair enough. And Ben, I want to turn now to some of the playing personnel. You mentioned a few of them, and there's three players that really kind of stand out to me. And hopefully, I'm picking the star, Ben. If not, you are going to correct me. Big Sweden goal, Victor Johansson obviously came. He was at, I believe he was at Rotherham for a period of time under Paul Warren, and there were rumors that Paul wanted to sign him, as well as Tom Cannon and as well as Lewis Kumas as well on loan from Liverpool. Talk to me about, are those the three star men? Who's really the star, the one to watch out for, or the two players Derby needs to shut down in order to get a result?
Oh, see, the thing is, I think we have quite a few. I guess you could say star men or can be on their day. So Victor Hansen's been fantastic this season. I wouldn't have been surprised if most of the league were after him. How we managed to get him? Probably high wages. Um, uh, Other than that, he is by far and away one of the better goalkeepers in this league and has proven that again this season after performing for Rotherham. Um, Tom Cannon had one really good game against Portsmouth, scoring 4 goals, and other than that, has been a passenger for the majority of games. Um, not bad in the press. Clearly got some good pace, but other than that, doesn't really help with the build up. Um, and hence why we haven't really been performing attacking wise, I would say, or at least fulfilling our potential anyway. Lewis Kumas, really impressed with him as an 18-year-old. Um, still very raw, still can't play every minute of every game because of his age. He's got to be eased in. Um, but he plays pretty much when he can, and he appears to be growing as time goes on. His pace, his intelligence with his runs, his finish against was it Bristol City was incredible. He's clearly got some very good qualities and will only develop, I think, throughout the season. Liverpool are very lucky to have him. Um, I mentioned who else could have star potential before, but haven't really been on form. Wouter Berger, fantastic midfielder last season, controlled pretty much every game under Steven Schumacher. Um, Dipped off towards the end last season, I think, through fatigue, and then this season hasn't carried on that good form. Whether they've just not found a place for him in the midfield yet, I'm not sure. Bae Ho, he's a 20-year-old for us, Korean, fantastic in the league towards the end of last season. Came over from the K League. Took him a long time to settle in. Um, I say a long time. I'd say 6 months isn't that bad in hindsight. He sort of broke his way into the team, and then by the end of it, won our Player of the Season award. He truly is one of the most, I would say, talented players in the team. I think this season, whether it because he's played so many games, I think he's played probably 70 games in the last 12 months or so. It's a lot of football. And he he looks fatigued, he looks tired, and also looks quite frustrated that he's not able to have the same impact on games that he did last season. The only other player who has blown hot and cold for us this season is Millie Manhuff, who plays on the right wing for us, and his technical ability is fabulous. He's able to score a goal out of nowhere. He's able to run at his defender. He's able to cut that splitting through ball right through the midfield, and it just ends up at a striker in the box. Perfect for someone you would say like Tom Cannon or Lewis Kumas. Um, but his finishing in front of goal one on one is particularly poor. Missed so many chances in that regard, and has cost us points, I think, because of it. Um, and then if he's marked out the game, he's not quite figured out a way to force his way through or find an alternative role in the team. Um, I don't know. There could be another breakout star by the time the end of this month comes. There might be a player that we've not even spoke about who really performs against Derby, but there's a lot of I couldn't predict who man other than maybe a Hansen. I couldn't say who man of the match would probably be uh, against yourselves at the weekend because we have so many that sort of blow hot and cold.
Yeah, fair enough. And we have a big Sweden goal as well that we love, Jakob Zetterstrom. So it'll be an interesting battle between the sticks between two Swedish goalkeepers who are obviously vying for the number one shirt there. And Ben, that's really interesting. Especially, Lewis Kumas, he made a few appearances for Liverpool last year in the cup, always very impressive. And remember his dad playing, which makes me feel really old. Because my dad, when he watches football, he's like, "Oh, I remember watching this guy," and I was like, "Yeah, Dad, you're just old." Now I feel really old because I'm watching kids of guys that I grew up playing. That just hit me for six. That just makes me feel like an old man. So do my knees and my shoulders and my back, and every time I get out of bed. That's fine. Constant reminders. Um, Looking at the Stoke City lineup, Ben, 5-4-1 is what they lined up in the last game against Sheffield United, which was a 2-0 loss. Is that generally the favored formation by Pelic? Is it 5-4-1? And in that 5-4-1, is it a flat five, or do those wing backs kind of maraud up and down the flanks as modern fullbacks tend to do?
I can't really comment much on the five back itself because actually you wouldn't expect as a Catalan manager who loves possession football to play 4-4-2, but that is what he's been playing. It's been quite odd really to see us play with two. I want to say perhaps one is more of a number six, one is slightly more of a number 10, but definitely both sort of sharing their roles. Two wingers and two strikers with a flat back four. And it's been quite nostalgic as a Stoke fan to see us go back to 4-4-2. We've had some really good years, uh, probably 10, 15 years ago now with a 4-4-2. Um, but the issue we've had is for the two games that we played really well in, we had Sam Gallagher up front, who was a bit of a foil for Tom Cannon. Sam Gallagher got injured after two games and is on the treatment table and will be for some time. So we've been playing Kumas and Cannon up front, and both of them are such a similar type of player that we're finding it hard to get the ball to stick up top. So we're relying on players like Beijing Ho on the left-hand side and Millie Manaf on the right to try and drive that ball through the wings. Because we can't seem to break down the midfield via Bouterberg or Andy Moran normally plays in centre midfield. But we just can't quite find that through ball through. Um, and then the flat back four, we sort of got Ben Wilmot, who is a centre back playing at right back at the moment. We often try and go with Ender Stevens if we can at left back. Um, he is getting on in his years, but he still seems to be very technically proficient. We just can't play him more than twice in a week. So if there is a midweek game, such as tonight, we're having to play Eric Bogat, who is a new signing for us. First time we signed a left back for money, I think, in about 8 years. Only the second we've signed for money in about 20 years. So I like him, but Ender Stevens just seems to be that solid head that we need at the moment. And then the centre back pairing, it's been often Michael Rose and Ben Gibson, which fairly experienced back two, um, but has a mistake in them, both of them. I think it was Ben Gibson who sort of teed it up for uh Jeffrey Jesrin Raksaki, I think it is. Yeah, Jesrin Raksaki to lay it off to Tyrese Campbell. Slid in and just left the ball perfectly for Raksaki. Couldn't believe it, despite him being supposedly a very reliable centre back. Um, that's a team. I don't know quite how the 4-4-2 works. It certainly can with that um, focal point up front that we just don't seem to have at the moment, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's interesting, different shapes and different formations and how they do that. And very old school Stoke to go to the 4-4-2. Very old school, very Tony Pulis ball. So get out your baseball caps and your long throws and your towels. Remember when Roy Delap had the towel stitched in his shirt? That
Do I
was just
remember? Of course, I remember.
that was. Did you do you have a shirt with a towel stitched inside?
No, so I never had one. I remember the laps. I remember Boaz Myhill. Who was he playing
Oh,
for at
as
the
my
time? Was
hill.
it
That is.
Wolves or West Brom? I can't
Yeah.
remember who he was playing for. But instead of kicking out for a throw in, he decided to turn around and kick it out for a corner because he thought that that was less dangerous. So
That's peak
that's my
Barclays right
favorite
there.
Premier League memory.
That was peak Barclays. Like
Yeah,
that was just peak Barclays.
exactly.
Um, Ben, before I let you go, I need to press you on three more topics. What are the strengths of the Stoke City side? Where can they go and where can they hurt Derby?
Um, the manager would say the strengths are that it's a young team, and it is. I think it's probably one of the youngest starting 11s on average in the league, um, which has worked for Sunderland clearly. Dynamic, open to new ideas, aggressive and hungry, um, but also has a vast amount of inexperience in it. I'm sure you'll ask me about weaknesses later. I'd say we do have some good attacking talent. Um, and I think if we're able to break through either a press or a deep block, I think we could really hurt teams going forward this season. Palak does seem to have found a bit of a rhythm for attacking. Um, and then the biggest strength for me at the moment, the biggest obvious strength is Victor Hansen in goal, who it's going to take something either special or from not very far out to beat him. He is keeping us above the relegation zone at the moment.
Yeah, when your goalkeeper plays well, it always gives people the back line confidence. It's always a solid starting point. Coming from a Derby supporter, when you have a not a good goalkeeper, everything else kind of just goes to pot. But starting at the back is a good building block. Ben, you were right. I'm going to ask you about the weaknesses. Where are the weaknesses in the Stoke City team, and where can Derby? Because obviously Paul Warren's going to watch this. Where can they go, and where can they hurt Stoke, or where can Derby attack to hurt Stoke? What are the weaknesses in the Stoke team?
I would say technically our two fullbacks are quite slow in Ender Stevens and Ben Wilmot. So if you've got some pace down the wings, I can see us being hurt from that way. As I said, it is a relatively young team, so I think inexperience, particularly as the game sort of comes towards half time or at the start of the second half, um, it, it we can show to be weak. Um, in spells in the game. So if Derby can be patient and take advantage of that, then they might be able to get something out of the game. But I think the biggest weakness is ourselves. We have started the season one international break in and hired a new manager with completely new ideas, and they're just not drilled yet. I think he said in a press conference that Stoke have moved on to stage two in his plans. Really shouldn't be at stage two in November by the time we play you. It's the fact that we haven't got into second gear yet for me. Um, and that might come to hurt teams later down the road. I think we play you guys on one of the last games of the season, in the reverse fixture. We might be able to hurt you then. But for now, I just don't think we're ready yet.
Interesting, Ben, about the phase two. Did they lay out how many phases there are of this plan, or like did they do a PowerPoint slide? Is there like a 5 phase plan? Or is it just one of those buzzwords like this is phase two? Don't worry.
I think probably more the latter. To be honest, I wasn't quite sure what phase one was. Yeah, we definitely didn't show much of phase two on Saturday against Sheffield United. I'll say that much.
Fair enough. And Ben, before I let you go, I've got to press you. How do you think this game is going to go? These two teams Derby sitting 12th, Stoke sitting what 18th, I think, at the current time of recording. Well, because there's a Carabao Cup game, so the league table won't change. I would say it's pretty big game for both sides. You know, Stoke can get a victory against a team that many have thought will be down there towards the end of the season, and Derby can vice versa get a result. And it's not a 6-pointer per se, but it can go a long way into putting some distance and some gaps between different teams or closing that gap. How are you viewing this game from a Stoke City perspective, and how do you think this game's going to go?
I Going into the game, I think depending on how tonight goes and whether we make it through to the quarterfinals of the cup, which would be a great achievement, by the way. There's only three teams left in the competition as we stand, and I assume that the two other championship teams will go out against Brentford and I think Arsenal as well. So if we make it through against Southampton, that'll be a great achievement through to quarters, and that might lift the mood a bit. But otherwise, assuming that we lose, the atmosphere is not great at the moment. There's a lot of frustration, there's a lot of apathy. Um, and if we lose, it's going to get a bit toxic. But Stoke have a habit over the last 6 years of being a bit of a pressure cooker, and slowly, the pressure builds. The pressure builds. We lose game. The fans get frustrated, and all of a sudden, it all comes out in one game. We did it last season against, I think it was QPR. We did it last season, I think, against Middlesbrough, where the pressure was really on. Stoke just seemed to relieve themselves of bother, and this is why we stayed up. And for me, the pressure cooker's sort of at its limit at the moment. So I do wonder whether it's one of those games where it's going to be a routine 2-0 victory for Stoke simply because of I think the pressure's on a little bit, and it's what Stoke need right now.
Yeah, hopefully it's not a 2-0 win to Stoke, but I can see it from a Stoke perspective of, like you were saying, really, really bad fixtures in November, December, and you don't want to be staring down the barrel of, one win in 15 going into the January transfer window, because then, heads will probably roll, things will do whatever, and it could look a lot more bleak. So hopefully the Stoke pressure cooker gets relieved, next week or after the international break, and not this weekend, because that would suck. Or hey, maybe it's removed tonight. I don't know. Maybe they're going to beat Southampton like 5-6-0, use up all their goals for the rest of the year, and whatever. But I'm looking forward to it. Then should be a good game against two sides that both want to get results. You have to get results every team needs to get a result, but Derby's not unbeaten in 4, but not won in a couple of games, and Stoke needs some points on the board too. So should be an intriguing and interesting game, and it's on television here at 8:20 in the morning. So I will be up early on Saturday watching it. Why, I don't know, but that's how I'm going to spend my Saturday morning, as you're going to spend your Saturday watching the game as well. So it's like we'll be there together, but just not. Ben Rowley, podcaster and Stoke City supporter and friend of the podcast. Ben, thanks for spending the last half hour or so with me. Really appreciate it.
As well. Thanks ever so much, mate.
We'll be back next week with another match preview. Stay tuned for a lot more goodies coming your way.